Okay, so today we're diving into one of the most brilliant and frankly bizarre deception missions of the Second World War. It's called Operation Mincemeat. And this is one of those stories that, sounds like it's straight out of a spy novel, but it's absolutely true. And it really did change the entire course of the war.
So picture this. It's April 1943, off the coast of Spain. A body washes up on the shore. He's dressed in the full uniform of a British Royal Marine. Looks like just another tragic casualty of war, right? Well, not exactly. See this man? He wasn't just a casualty. He was a complete, carefully crafted illusion.
And that's really the big question, isn't it? How on earth could this one dead man, who, by the way, never even really existed, how could he change the entire course of World War II? I mean, how do you fool the entire German high command with a lie this audacious?
So let's start at the beginning. It all kicks off when that body washes ashore, and the bait is officially set.
But to really get why this one dead man mattered so much, you gotta understand the huge problem the Allies were facing back in 1943. They were gearing up to attack what Churchill called Europe's soft underbelly. But the big question was, where exactly do you strike? See, the problem was almost too simple. Sicily. It was the absolute perfect target. I mean, it's right there, a perfect stepping stone from North Africa into Italy. But that was the issue. It was too perfect. It was a total no-brainer, which meant the Germans knew it too. They'd fortified the island like crazy. A direct attack? It was going to be a complete and utter bloodbath. Yeah, and Winston Churchill, well, he didn't mince words. He basically said, everyone but a bloody fool would know that it's Sicily. So the Allies were stuck. Their plan was so obvious they absolutely had to find a way to make the Germans look completely somewhere else. They needed a lie, and not just any lie, a massive, incredibly convincing one.
Okay, and this is where the plan gets truly genius. The solution came from this brainstorming document called the Trout Memo. And get this, one of its authors was none other than Ian Fleming. Yeah, the guy who would later create James Bond. The idea itself was simple and kind of morbid. What if you used a corpse to hand-deliver false secrets to the enemy?
So the mission was simple, but incredibly complex. Create a man from nothing. You couldn't just, drop any old body in the water. The guys in charge, Ewen Montagu and Charles Cholmondeley, they had to invent a whole person from scratch. A guy with a backstory, a personality, and a totally believable reason for carrying top-secret papers on him. So, first things first, they needed a body. And this was a huge hurdle. They eventually found Glyndwr Michael, a homeless man who sadly had no family to come looking for him. The cause of his death was also, well, convenient because it wouldn't be obvious after the body had been in the water for a while. They gave him a new life, a new identity, Major William Martin. The name was chosen because it was super common, nothing to raise suspicion. But the clock was ticking. They only had about 3 months to pull this whole thing off before the body started to, decompose. But a name isn't enough, right? To make Major Martin believable, he needed a life. So they created this official-looking ID card for him. And for his fiancée, Pam, because of course he had a fiancée, they used a photo of a young clerk working in at MI5. This wasn't just an intelligence op. It was world building. It was storytelling on a whole other level. And the story was all in the tiny details. They filled his pockets with what spies call pocket litter. Just think about what's in your pockets right now. They gave him love letters from Pam, a receipt for a diamond ring he'd supposedly bought her, even a nasty letter from his bank about an overdraft. Why? To make him seem real, flawed, human. Every single item was a piece of a puzzle, building a picture of a man who never actually lived. So they've created their man. The backstory is perfect. Now comes the really dangerous part. How do you deliver this elaborate deception right under the enemy's nose? The execution had to be absolutely flawless. They sealed the body in this special canister with dry ice, drove it all the way up to Scotland under the cover of darkness, and loaded it onto the submarine HMS Seraph. The crew, by the way, had no idea what they were carrying. They were told it was just a secret weather device. Then, in the dark, early hours of April 30th, they surfaced off Huelva, Spain. And that location was no accident. It was crawling with German agents. The body of Major Martin, with that all-important briefcase chained to his wrist, was gently released into the sea. And then, they just had to wait. It must have been agonizing. The body's out there, the fake plans are in the briefcase, but would the Germans find it? And the million-dollar question, would they actually fall for it? It worked like a charm. A local fisherman finds the body. It gets passed to the Spanish authorities who, while technically neutral, were pretty friendly with the Nazis. And just as planned, they secretly opened the briefcase, photographed every single document inside, and sent the copies straight to German military intelligence. Then they handed everything back to the British, pretending nothing had happened. And this is the smoking gun, a top-secret German message that the Allies intercepted and decoded. It's from Grand Admiral Dönitz, and it confirms that not only have the documents reached the top, but the Führer himself, Hitler, is completely convinced. The lie worked so well because it tapped right into Hitler's own paranoia. He was always expecting some complex trick, not the obvious move. So when British intelligence got this message, they sent a cable to Churchill. The message: mincemeat swallowed rod, line, and sinker. And this wasn't just some abstract intelligence win. The fallout was immediate, and it was huge. Hitler started moving his best troops all over the map, completely convinced the real attack was coming on Sardinia and in Greece. A whole panzer division gets moved out of France. He doubles the number of troops on Sardinia. The entire German defense shifts away from Sicily, right as the Allies are about to knock on the door. The results on the ground were just staggering. Military planners had braced for a brutal 90-day slugfest to take Sicily. Instead, it was all over in just 38 days, less than half the time.
But this next number, this is the one that really matters. In the first week of the invasion, Allied casualties were down 86% from what was predicted. 86%. Think about that. This wasn't just about outsmarting the enemy. Operation Mincemeat saved thousands and thousands of lives. So, what's the lasting impact of all this? Well, the success of this one single operation sent absolute shockwaves through the world of espionage, leaving a legacy we can still see today. Operation Mincemeat basically became the textbook definition of a false intelligence mission. It was the gold standard. It proved, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that a really, really good lie could be just as devastating a weapon as an entire tank division.
And it didn't stop there. The incredible success of Mincemeat directly inspired an even bigger deception plan for the D-Day landings the following year. It was called Operation Bodyguard, and it had everything: inflatable tanks, armies that didn't exist, fake radio chatter, all designed to make Hitler think the real invasion was coming at Pas de Calais and not on the beaches of Normandy.
And then, after the war, once the story was finally declassified, it just exploded into pop culture. The book about it, The Man Who Never Was, became a huge bestseller. Suddenly, espionage wasn't this sort of shady, ungentlemanly business. No, this story turned it into an act of patriotic genius, a game of high-stakes intellectual chess.
And that kind of brings us to a final, pretty powerful thought. Today we think about deception in terms of cyber warfare, satellite surveillance, digital disinformation. But Operation Mincemeat, it was completely analog. It was all about human nature. It didn't work because it fooled a machine. It worked because it fooled a man. It got inside Hitler's head and played on his own biases and assumptions. And maybe that's the real lesson here, that no matter how much technology changes, the ultimate battlefield is always the human mind.